wonderful mystery of your church. Thank you that you have called men and women throughout every age into service to you, and that you call each of us even here today. And we pray you be in our conversation. Help us discuss those things here today that are for our great good and for your greater glory. For we pray it all in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, I have show and tell today because, we talked about, Father Daniel talked about people adding to families and then the sort of family of Christ getting bigger. But when I was in seminary, after I'd been there a year, a guy came along and he was single at the time, and he all of a sudden just got grafted into our family. I guess not so much as our oldest child, but more like a brother to me. But he would sit in the back of our van on the way to Racine, which is an hour away from the seminary we were at, every Wednesday, Sunday, and sometimes Monday and Tuesday, while he watched the Muppets in the back seat with my children, who are now taller than me, and were at the time 2 and 4. And so Father Andrew Petta is here. And Father Andrew also, we have been on mission together around the world. We've gone to Myanmar together most recently. And as you know, the situation in Myanmar is sad. That was the last place we were out internationally together. But his dad also ran SOMA, which is an international missions organization. So I've got a bunch of questions that Amy has asked me to answer here. And I'm going to call Father Andrew up. You want to come up here and help me? He's on sabbatical, but I'm going to put him to work. Yeah, here, you got a microphone. All right, so
microphone too.
but I got the cool one.
You got the Madonna headset.
So we're going to answer a few questions about just what Anglicanism is. So I'm going to start by telling you, okay, if you open up your Bible, you're going to find a bunch of words in there that carry through to what we do today. So we, as Anglicans, we believe in the threefold order of ministry: bishop, priest, and deacon. Were there bishops, priests, and deacons in the Bible? Some people say yes, some people say no. So here's what there were, clearly. When you see the word overseer in the Bible, the Greek word there is episkopos, which comes to us in English as bishop. So the Episcopal Church and the whole, that's why they call it the Episcopal Church, is because it wasn't cool to call yourself an Anglican after you just fought the English off and made them leave our shores. So calling yourself an Anglican wasn't a good idea in 1789. So they called themselves Episcopal, which is basically the same thing as calling yourself a Baptist or a Congregationalist, really, or a Presbyterian. Those are different forms of government. So our form of government for the church has bishops, which in the Bible, most Bibles is translated often as overseer. Sometimes you see the word elder translated in the Bible. That's the word presbyteros in Greek, which comes to us in English in two different ways. It comes to us as both presbyter, which is where we get Presbyterian from, and also as the word priest in English. Through Middle English, the word priest is just a translation of that Greek word presbyter. The difference between bishops and priests in the Bible is maybe, if we're honest, a little bit sketchy. Like in the early days, you're from Fort Worth. They don't agree with this. But I'm from where we call ourselves Protestant. So the difference between priests and bishops maybe is a little bit sketchy, and we don't exactly know where the two offices split out, but I can tell you this: by the end of the first century, by like 100 AD, by the time we get this book called the Didache or Clement of Rome or the writings of the early church fathers, there is a clear threefold order. There's bishops, priests, and then there's the other one where you see in the Bible this word sometimes translated as servant. It can be one of two words. It can either be doulos, right, which implies more like house servant or even slave, although slavery is a very, very different institution in the Bible than what happened here in our country. Or it means deacon. In the office of deacon, Stephen, the proto-martyr, is a deacon. He's clearly set aside to be a deacon. So that bishops, priests, and deacons, evidence for it there scripturally, certainly by the end of the first century. That's how the church is ordered throughout the Christian world, which is in that period of time around the Mediterranean. So we're electing a new bishop. You just elected a new bishop.
We did.
You're doing great.
I got this. I'm on to that.
So, So the question is, what does it mean to elect a new bishop? So who is our bishop? Neil LeBar is our bishop. He's retiring. We'll be electing a new bishop. There's different ways to do it. You guys elected a bishop coadjutor.
Yeah, so bishop coadjutor is basically kind of someone who runs in tandem with your current bishop in office. So they overlap for a period of time, and they're going to be the successor to the diocesan bishop. So it's a way in which the church can usually elect a bishop alongside a long-standing bishop so that they can work alongside each other 6 months a year and then kind of pass the crozier quite literally at the end of that time.
Right, in which case there'll be two separate services. There'll be a consecration most often, and then well, we don't call it...
Installation.
So Bishop Ackerman killed me on this week.
Installation.
We call it an installation, but technically it's not an installation.
It's an enthronement.
It's an enthronement, it's a seating of a bishop, because we literally say, welcome to your chair.
Hence, that you're the cathedral.
So anybody know what the bishop's chair is called?
Cathedra. I heard it.
Cathedra. Okay, somebody said it. Cathedra. There is technically one cathedra in a diocese, just as there's one cathedral. So other parishes will often have bishop's chairs, and they may look exactly the same and function exactly the same. But the bishop's chair in the cathedral is technically termed his throne, his cathedra. So if that's the case where there's a separate consecration and then seating, in our case, we're not going to do a bishop coadjutor, right? So I'm looking to Michael because he's on the search committee. So we're going to basically have a consecration and seating for a new bishop, that'll be the literal passing of the crozier. Why do we need bishops? Well, our Presbyterian friends say you don't. Our Baptist friends say you don't. But our understanding of ordained ministry is a little different. So technically, Father Andrew and our ministry is an extension of the bishops. So we're like little tentacles of the bishop throughout all of our parishes. So that's our understanding of ordained ministry. So a bishop, we keep using this word diocese. So what's a diocese? You answer that one.
All right. A diocese is a geographical region, so you are part of the Diocese of the Gulf Atlantic, right?
Very good.
Okay, all right. I'm part of the Diocese of Fort Worth. So historically, it was a region in which groups of churches would exist together for the common purpose of the gospel under their diocesan bishop. So the diocesan bishop couldn't be in every church on a Sunday, hence you get guys like us in his stead, and then he would often visit around the churches of his diocese. So a lot of times dioceses are somewhere between 30, 60 churches, and they would often make a visit each week, 52 weeks in the year. They'd try to be at each one, and they'd often have a coadjutor, or in some cases, a suffragan bishop. They couldn't make every church every Sunday. So the goal was the bishop would be preaching every week somewhere different, and in his absence, there would be guys like us in his stead. So the diocese is just a fancy term for kind of a group of churches in a specific region, although in the realignment we're in, sometimes the regions are much larger than they have been in the past. So,
and because of this realignment with the Anglican Church, there are overlapping jurisdictions, so sometimes that's affinity-based. So there are dioceses who ordain women and dioceses who don't ordain women. Our diocese does, yours doesn't. So oftentimes you'll see two dioceses in the same place sort of expressing that difference. And that's basically where we're at. And there's also been some shenanigans because there were people who wanted to sort of start their own thing, and now we're having to work through that. We're still, I would say we're past the baby stage of being a province, and we're like into the awkward adolescent, middle school stage.
We're figuring out how to dance together, and we're often in our corners
right.
trying to figure out how to mingle.
Yeah, it's the
it's kind of the leave room for the Holy Spirit. It's
right.
weird, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Kim and I discovered the other day. I said, "Oh my gosh, we have to do middle school again."
It's coming up fast.
It's
brother.
the worst. So you have a group of bishops. Our College of Bishops is what we call them, is our group of bishops. And then at the head of the group of bishops, some provinces, the Episcopal Church where many of us came from, called it a presiding bishop. The diocese of the province of the Middle East, Jerusalem in the Middle East, calls it a presiding bishop. Scotland calls it a presiding bishop. Who else? Y'all remember? There's a couple others. Liberia, a couple of others. But for the most part, provinces, there's 40 Anglican provinces worldwide, 41, depending on how you count it. And most of them have what's called an archbishop. So you know an archbishop. You have seen an archbishop. An archbishop has been with you. And that's Archbishop Bob Duncan, who is technically the Archbishop Emeritus. So he's retired as the Archbishop, and Foley Beach is our Archbishop. What does it mean to be an Archbishop? Well, he's a bishop. First, I mean, there isn't a separate ordination to Archbishop. There'll be a separate enthronement or a separate seating of the Archbishop because he has jurisdiction over a wider area, and he does have authority to discipline bishops. So if a bishop does something, pulls some hanky-panky, he can remove them from office through a process, though. So he's really a first among equals. So the next question I have is the ACNA. You were there at the founding. Were you there at the founding at St. Vincent's Cathedral?
I was a curate there.
You were. That's right. Yeah, but I think we were in seminary when that happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was, I think, right after that.
Yeah, but you were there when it went down.
Yeah.
So what is the ACNA?
The ACNA is the Anglican Church in North America, of which we are a part. We are one of those provinces, so you are a part of something far greater than even St. Peter's or even the ACNA in North America, which spans Canada and North America, and, well, now parts of Mexico, kind of overlapping down into that area as well. You're a part of something that's 82, 83 million and counting worldwide on a Sunday morning. So I think we're on the smaller end. Our brothers and sisters in Uganda and Nigeria rival by about 20 million on a Sunday apiece, roughly.
Yeah, I think Nigeria's 38 million.
They've climbed quite a bit.
Yeah.
So we are kind of strung all over North America and into Canada.
Right.
And it's the structure in which we do life together. So we hold common values as outlined in the Nicene Creed, first and foremost, and housed in 39 articles, and all of those bits and pieces. But we work together so that we're in fellowship with other believers and Christians around the globe.
So to get into the controversy, do you think we're part of the Anglican Communion?
Absolutely we are.
Okay, I disagree. Because
if we define it,
that's exactly
if
right.
you want to define it as through Canterbury,
right.
then no.
So these things,
although
right.
we've been told that Canterbury, in a very English way, has said we're not in communion with them.
No, they didn't say. Yeah, they said the English version of nothing.
That's right.
Yeah.
My daughter said that the other night. You're not going to do this. And
right.
So it essentially cancels itself out.
Yeah.
So it's a very English way of kind of saying we're not really wanting to touch that. But they can't get around the fact.
So the distinction I make is
things
between the organizational and the relational. So organizationally, the Anglican Communion got defined really recently, actually, like 70s, 80s, as this sort of structural thing with this group called the Anglican Consultative Council, which was this incorporated by. It didn't exist before the 1970s, and it didn't have nobody even knew it existed until really the 90s, when things started to break apart at the seams after 98. So it really depends on who you talk to. I don't push the issue of, are you part of the Anglican Communion? Because if somebody's coming to me and asking, are you part of the Anglican Communion? And they mean organizationally, then the answer might be no. Relationally, we are in communion with more Anglicans around the world, like 10 to 1 more Anglicans around the world than those bodies that are organizationally part of the Anglican Communion. So it depends on how you want to define that. The Anglican Church in North America is in communion with something like 90% of Anglicans worldwide, which when we compare that to, how do I avoid? I'll just say the Anglican Church of Canada, because none of us were ever hurt by the Anglican Church of Canada. the Canadians are very nice, but they're in communion with like 20% of Anglicans worldwide. So
that's shifting too.
Yep,
Because,
that's right.
We had the communion, which was housed in Lambeth. That was every 10 years, and that's kind of gone by the wayside in many ways. So GAFCON has kind of risen as what seems to be. This is my take, not official, but it seems to be that will kind of be the gathering point around Anglicans.
Well, between Global South and GFCA. So GFCA is the Global Fellowship of Confessing Anglicans. The Global South is another group of Anglicans. There's a big increasing overlap between those two groups, such that they're really merging into one. So one of the things we get asked, and we've been asked this for years and years and years, is, oh, isn't the Archbishop of Canterbury like our Pope? And the answer is no, we're not actually really in relationship with that guy these days. So we don't have that hierarchy. We have bishops as the basic unit of Anglicanism, which, by the way, is how the earliest church worked. Like the Bishop of Rome was considered first among equals. He didn't have authority over other bishops. The Archbishop is somebody who that group of bishops, that province, has agreed to, they elect him and they agree to sort of come together as a national church. That national church will be in communion with other churches. So in our case, if there is any hierarchy, it's a doctrinal hierarchy from us to our bishop, from our bishop to the archbishop, and from the archbishop really to the general secretary of GAFCON, the Global Fellowship of Confessing Anglicans. And you grew up at his house.
I did. So our archbishop is the head
of our national
as well. Which is a big link for us, which is where we would say, you know, we're as much a part as anyone else is, because he's the, I forget his official title, chairman.
Yes, of the Province Council,
And the secretary, general secretary, is Archbishop Kwashi.
Who we almost, y'all, we were this close to having him here to preach for my institution.
For a hot minute.
For a hot minute, it looked like it was going to work out, but Archbishop Kwashi has just undergone 6 months of chemotherapy and radiation for cancer. He's doing great, but
actually, the great news is Father Daniel's sermon was spot on. We prayed for big things, and it looks like he's certainly in remission, if not completely healed. So God indeed does still work miracles today. So we give great thanks for that. I think we had a hand for you right back here.
But he flies back to Nigeria the next day. So it didn't work. Go ahead, Karen. So is the ACNA invited to the Anglican Communion gatherings, and do we have a vote? The answer is maybe.
And which gathering you're asking about?
So the Anglican Consultative Council, the answer is no, but they don't have authority in any real sense anyways.
Although we were invited as observers, at least.
That was to Lambeth.
Lambeth, that's right.
So the Lambeth Council is the one which we, up until 1998, was the gathering of all the bishops around the world got together, and they made doctrinal decisions on big things that affected the communion. And in 98, that worked great. And then the whole world fell apart because basically the Episcopal Church said, well, we're just not going to abide by it. What are you going to do? I mean, they really just punched him in the nose and said, I dare you to punch back. And so, because Lambeth 1998 said that we weren't going to go forward with ordination of active homosexuals. That was what Lambeth 1998 said. And then in 2003, Gene Robinson was consecrated, which is why St. Peter's exists, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So at that point, it was, well, then what is Lambeth for? They had one more Lambeth after that, which talked itself to death and never took a vote on anything. And then they have these sort of primates councils in between, and our primate has been invited to those. But the 2008 Lambeth, some of the Episcopal Church bishops were invited and some were not. Some of our bishops were invited and some were not. It's a hot mess. I don't want to lie to you. It's a hot mess. And the exciting part is we're in the middle of a global realignment. And And the ACNA is on the forefront of it.
On the tip of the spear, really.
That's right. And St. Peter's, y'all, is at the tip of the spear. So be of good cheer. So I'm going to stop there because the next question is raising up leaders for the Anglican Church in North America. So, Father Michael, we're going to go away. You're going to talk.
Okay, I want to say a brief word about the Charles Simeon Institute, and I'm going to ask Caleb and Colin to come and just say a brief word about themselves, and then we'll conclude. So, some of you may remember that St. Peter's was started in 2005. In 2006, we began our summer internship program, which is now the Charles Simeon Fellows Program. So each year, the Charles Simeon Institute awards fellowships that enable seminary students to come here for a summer from 12 to 10 weeks and to get what we call an immersive experience in parish ministry. So what does this involve, and why are we doing it? Well, one reason that we're working at is this is a time when folks who are in seminary can come and begin the process of integrating what they've learned in seminary with things they're going to be facing when they get to the parish. Sometimes there can be a disconnect between seminary education and life in the parish, and the thing that we all discover is that being a parish priest is really difficult. I mean, it really is, and I'm not just trying to get you to feel sorry for me, though that would be great. It's difficult. I mean, the demands are just like unending. And so one of the things that we do here is that seminary students are allowed to come here, and they're fully immersed in the life of the parish. So a couple things about how it works. Thing number one, we never bring interns here to do the work of the staff. No intern who comes here ever is given a job or work to do that another member of the staff is supposed to be doing. Interns come here to learn. They come here to watch. They come here to participate. They come here to get an experience of what it's like to go to hospice, and what it's like to visit the hospital, what it's like to preach on Sunday, what it's like to be involved in liturgy, what it's like to teach, what it takes to sort of administer and preside over a parish. That's the purpose of the internship. So a number of Sundays ago, a number of years ago, somebody stopped me. I think we had 4 interns that summer, and they said, well, gosh, your job's really easy this summer. You got 4 interns. And no, my job is more difficult. And it's a good difficult, but I just want you to realize that, okay? No intern ever does work that a member of the staff is supposed to be doing because it's educational. So the way that we do this is when anybody comes, first of all, they have a clergy supervisor who meets with them once a week. They work on what we call a learning serving covenant, and we ask the question, during your time here, what would you like to focus on? And how can we help you do that? And so we write it out. So basically, any intern who comes here for the summer is choosing to be able to focus on what they want to focus on so they can be a better priest at some point in the future. Really important. The other thing that we do is each intern is assigned what we call a lay mentoring committee that they meet with usually 3, 4, or 5 times over the course of the summer. So the strategy here is during their time here, they're getting input from their clergy supervisor, and they're also getting input from a group of lay people who are committed to them. So the whole purpose of this effort is to build, to encourage, to help folks recognize their spiritual gifts, and to go back to seminary with a sort of enhanced confidence in themselves. Now, our interns have gone on to do all kinds of things. Let me just mention a couple to give you an example. So we actually have a number of our former interns serving in this diocese. So Father Andrew Rao is rector now at Christ Church in Montgomery, Alabama, the second largest parish in the diocese. His associate is another one of our interns, Morgan Clark, who was with us a number of years ago. Father Chris Jones, who's here, another one of our former interns. Father Chase Campbell, who's now at Christ Church in Atlanta, associate rector for family ministry, is another one of our interns. So we've produced a lot of interns who've gone on to a number of things. Some of you may remember Father Nicholas Cruzy. was here when we were in the old building. He went on to plant a church in Waco, Texas, and at the same time he was there, he worked on a PhD in theology at Baylor University. So our interns have gone on to do all kinds of really great and wonderful things. One final thing. The Charles Simeon Institute really is the work of many people, and many of those people kind of work behind the scenes. I just want to mention a couple of them. I see in the audience some of our members of our board of advisors, so I want to recognize them. Dr. Charles Long, Mark Trafton, who's our board vice president, and I saw somebody else over here, Christopher Flager. Where are you? There you are. Okay, Chris Flager. Did I miss anybody? Oh, and Ashley too. Yes, Ashley Trafton is also on our board of advisors. And also someone else who's indispensable. This person is sort of our sort of sanity check. And that's Kathleen Smith, the associate director of the Institute. One final thing, I want to say a word of thanks to Dr. Bob McClure, who's been president of our board of advisors from the beginning and who has given hours and hours and hours of service to making the Charles Simeon Institute the success it is today. So I'd like to ask briefly, Caleb and Colin, if y'all would come, just say a word about yourselves and maybe what you'd like to do here.
Hey, so I'm Caleb Garvin. I grew up in this church. I've spent my formative years here. I've been here since about 2010. And most recently, I've been at Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary up in Hamilton, Massachusetts. It's the residential main campus of the seminary, one of 4 campuses. So what I'd like to do here is I have a love for liturgy, and I would like to deepen that love and knowledge of it so that I may use that to help the liturgy, help strengthen the knowledge and love of liturgy throughout the Anglican Church. I would also like to become better and to increase in my participation in counseling, as that is another one of my talents and callings, I feel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Colin Flake, and I just finished my 2nd year at the Anglican Episcopal House of Studies at Duke Divinity School. I grew up in a little small town called Concord, about 4 hours north of here. If you've driven up Highway 19, you may have passed through it, but if you blinked, you might have missed it. It's very small. I attended Wheaton College for my undergrad. When I showed up there, I was a pre-med major. I thought I would be a doctor. God had different plans. I ended up studying philosophy and theology with a certificate in human needs and global resources. It was a faith-based development program. After I graduated from Wheaton, after discerning a call to ministry there, I participated in the AmeriCorps program in Alamosa, Colorado. I worked at a homeless shelter and a food bank there for a year before beginning my time at Duke Divinity School. And in my time here at St. Peter's, I hope to continue to discern exactly where God is calling me vocationally, and the space where the life of the church meets the life of the world and the community around the church, and how God can use my particular story and gifts to speak into that space. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Two final things. 3 numbers. So since the program started in 2006, we've had 37 interns who have been in this parish. Colin and Caleb are intern numbers 38 and 39. So there's a wonderful, solid record of accomplishment. And the thing that I want you to realize is this program is not for St. Peter's. This program is for the future health and stability of the Anglican Church in North America. So you've got folks here who are going to go on to become rectors, possibly even bishops. And that's why our motto is forming tomorrow's Anglican leaders today. One final thing. If you go to our website, and it's there in the bulletin under the Charles Simeon section, you can request that you get on the mailing list for our electronic newsletter called The Old Apostle. There's a story behind that which we don't have time to go into, and it doesn't refer to me. It refers to somebody else, but it's called The Old Apostle, and it's sent out quarterly. It'll keep you up with what we're doing at the Charles Simeon Institute. So thank you for being here. how are we doing on time? Okay, it's just a little after 11, so we probably need to get moving. Thanks.